Welcome back to some new r/malicious compliance stories, where people comply to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. I hope you had a great day. Thanks for all the likes and comments on the last video. And now let's start with the first story. It's called Christmas Tree. Last year I managed a Christmas tree lot in Southern California. Let's just say it was one of the most entitled areas I've ever encountered. One day, a customer, let's call her Karen, came in and picked out a towering 14-foot Christmas tree. She then demanded that it be delivered to her home without tipping the delivery team or paying for the extra manpower such a large delivery required. Naturally, the contracted delivery drivers, unimpressed by her behavior, decided to decline her delivery altogether. That's when Karen turned her frustration towards me. She insisted that I, the manager, personally deliver her tree or refund her the $800 she paid for it. Sure, because strapping a 14-foot tree to my car and driving it across town sounded so practical. Instead, I ran for a little bit of perfectly polite compliance. I refunded her money on the spot. She wasn't expecting that. "Here's your full refund," I said, handing her the receipt with a cheerful smile. "Merry Christmas." And that's when things really escalated. She started yelling about her ruined Christmas, crumpled up the receipt, and threw it at me as if I was some kind of holiday villain. Then she stomped out of the lot, shouting about how I had single-handedly destroyed her holiday spirit. Later, I couldn't help but imagine her telling her family why there was no Christmas tree that year. Hopefully they enjoyed the story as much as I did. The next story is called The Way It Was. I once spent a considerable amount of time fixing a computer for a new client, after their PC had completely crashed due to a failed hard drive. Thankfully, the customer had a basic backup from about a year or two ago, so we managed to recover most of their files. The challenge was that I had almost no information to go on. I didn't know the original version of Windows they used, had no clue about their apps, and didn't know what email client they had. Whenever I asked questions, I was met with repeated, "I don't know," or "It didn't look like that before." Despite the hurdles, I stayed calm and patient, pulling up images from the internet to see if any start menus or apps looked familiar. In the end, I installed the latest and greatest software, made everything user-friendly, and organized all the apps on the start menu. Then came the forgotten email password. After spending half an hour trying to recover it, we hit a dead end. The security question wasn't something they recognized, and the partial recovery phone number wasn't theirs, until they remembered it was their landline. Eventually they found the password in a book, even though they initially insisted, "That's not the one I use for my email." Well, it was. After hours of work, the computer was running smoothly. However, over the next few days, I received multiple calls asking why certain obscure apps were missing, why I hadn't installed a questionable cleanup utility they'd paid for, or why the email autofill was empty. They thought I'd deleted their contacts. When I went back, I got a lecture about how the job wasn't good enough. They insisted they'd paid good money for the computer to be fixed and wanted it back the way it was. The truth was, I'd already heavily undercharged for my time, billing for only 2 hours instead of the 5 or 6 I'd actually invested. Looking back, I realized there had been some red flags. The client lived slightly outside my usual area, where they could have easily found a closer technician. They called me out of hours. They were uncooperative from the start. During small talk, they complained about their plumber and how many cleaners they'd gone through, saying they'd been let down repeatedly. They hadn't yet paid the invoice. By this point, I was fed up. The client stepped out of the room briefly, and I made a decision. I removed the new drive, reconnected the broken one, which was still in the case, and packed up my tools. I met the client in the hallway and said, "All sorted. It's back exactly as it was before. And don't worry, I'll cancel the invoice. There's nothing to pay." Then I left. I ignored a few missed calls afterward and blocked their number. I never heard from them again. I like to think they found someone far less patient, more expensive, and ended up with a worse result. The third story is called IT Professional. Way back when, I worked at a video store. Think Blockbuster. It was a great job for a kid going through university. Alongside that, I also worked with a local IT company, doing business call-outs and troubleshooting issues. One day, the video store got new owners. Eventually, something went wrong with the cash drawer's connection to the PC. I offered to take a look at it for the regular video store pay rate, $50 an hour or so back then. The new owners quickly declined, saying, "No, we'll get a professional." Fair enough, no problem. As you might have guessed, they called the local computer store for help. The store assured them they'd send their technician over right away. Here's the twist. The computer store called me to do the job. I answered the call, in front of the new owners, and accepted the work. The last story is called Overstepping. I had a job where you worked pretty independently to complete projects for customers. Each project usually took about a week. If it was a particular tough run, maybe a week and a half. There wasn't much supervision hour to hour. You just focused on getting your project done and checked in to report progress once a day at most. My manager, unfortunately, wasn't very effective at his job. Since I was hired, he routinely took 2 or 3 weeks on projects that should have been finished much faster. I also had to go back multiple times to fix issues on projects he had marked as completed. Because of that, I started reviewing his projects before delivery, first pointing out what still needed to be done, and then, at times, redoing parts of the projects to ensure we met customer deadlines. Eventually, we had a meeting with the manager, the boss, and me. I was firmly told that I was overstepping my role by reviewing projects that weren't assigned to me. While they appreciated that my interventions helped ensure projects were delivered on time and with high quality, I was told to stay in my lane moving forward. No official write-up was issued, but the message was clear. Fast forward. Delivery was 2 business days away, and my manager called to see if I had time to check on his project. A 1-week difficulty level project that he'd had 2 months to work on. I told him I'd take a quick look, but that I was already busy with my own workload. Sure enough, about half the project wasn't finished. I messaged the boss to confirm what I should do, citing the directive I was given during the meeting. The boss reiterated that I shouldn't interfere, saying something along the lines of, "Not your circus, not your monkeys." Fair enough. I left the manager a note, detailing what still needed to be done, but made it clear I wouldn't be stepping in to complete his work. This time it was on him. Side note for clarity. It was the manager who specifically directed me not to involve myself in his projects during our meeting. The boss agreed with that approach, but didn't issue an official reprimand due to unique circumstances. Interestingly, I had been keeping the boss informed every time I had to step in to fix or complete my manager's work. It seems like they've been documenting these instances to build a case for replacing him. As for this project, my manager is already trying to shift blame onto the office staff for not catching that his supposedly finished project was far from complete. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe. And if you have time, watch another one of my videos. Also, if you want to support me further, check out the channel membership or Patreon. And now, I hope you have a great day. See you soon. Bye bye.